video is on the pursuit of success and fame, and is part of a series of videos on the pursuit of fulfillment in life. In particular, the series looks at the ancient book of Ecclesiastes for answers on how humans can truly live a fulfilled life here on earth. This book was written by a king named Solomon, who had the reputation of being wiser than any other man on earth due to special wisdom being given to him by God. In the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon tries different means of attaining fulfillment to try and determine which of the methods works. While the book of Ecclesiastes can be a difficult one to read because of the futile pursuit of fulfillment of those who seek it incorrectly, the lessons we learn from Solomon as he examines these meaningless paths that people are on are extremely valuable. For some, listening to Solomon's advice and warnings will save them from a lifetime of wasting their time chasing after things that will never satisfy them. Now, this video will focus on a life pursuing success and fame as a means to finding fulfillment in life. Ecclesiastes 2 verses 7 to 9 says, "I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired men and women singers and a harem as well, the delights of the heart of man. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this my wisdom stayed with me." Now, when a person's pursuit of fulfillment and happiness has to do with success and fame or being the best at something, what are their defining characteristics? What do we learn about a person like this? First off, they tend to have more things than they can possibly enjoy by themselves. Verse 7 of chapter 2 talks about this. Now, this is a characteristic that is true of many people, but the second characteristic is more troubling, which is that they tend to use others to accomplish their success. In Ecclesiastes 2, verses 7 to 8, Solomon talks about having slaves and those who would do his bidding to bring pleasure to him. This obviously is a problem. Thirdly, there's always a strong need to be greater than anyone else. Verse 9 of chapter 2, "A person who pursues success and fame for fulfillment will not be happy unless they are the most successful and the most famous." The result is that, fourthly, they tend to be people who are in a competition with everyone. They are not happy with the success of any who might threaten their success and fame. So one of the first things we want to look at is, why doesn't the pursuit of success and fame end in fulfillment or happiness? Solomon reveals the answer to this in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and we're going to read from verse 4 to verse 16. "And I saw that all labor and all achievement spring from man's envy of his neighbor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. The fool folds his hands and ruins himself. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Again I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. Now two are better than one, because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up, but pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves, and a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Better a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king who no longer knows how to take warning. The youth may have come from prison to the kingship, or he may have been born in poverty within his own kingdom. I saw that all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth, the king's successor. There was no end to all the people who were before them, but those who came later were not pleased with the successor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind." Now, the first thing we learn here is that there is no peace or happiness for the man who's in competition with anyone who might threaten his success. Chapter 4, verse 4 of Ecclesiastes talks about this. Secondly, such a person can never enjoy the success he obtains because it will never be enough. There will always be greater success that could be obtained, and such a person will even begin to fight with himself. We call these people perfectionists. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 6. Thirdly, these people tend to push other people away, which cuts off a huge area of happiness and fulfillment in their lives. the area of loving relationships with other people. Verses 7 to 11 of chapter 4 talked about that. Fourthly, becoming successful, or as it says in verse 13, a king, often will produce in me the idea that I am smarter than those around me, and this does not usually end well. Any threats that come to my fulfillment or happiness that I cannot detect, but others could, smarter people, will go unnoticed by me, and even my success will be lost. Verses 13 to 16 of chapter 4. And lastly, every person on the planet will have his success taken from him at death, and the longest part of our lives will be lived in a place where temporal success and being first are meaningless. And of course, I'm talking about eternity. Why does it matter how successful you are here when it counts for nothing in eternity, if all of that success is just for yourself? So how do we avoid this trap of pursuing success, fame, and preeminence? Well, we need to understand that success and proficiency in life are good things. Verse 5. It is when we must be more than just successful and proficient and begin chasing after success beyond what we can enjoy anymore. Verse 6 talks about this. We need to work to make others successful, especially our families. Verse 8 of chapter 4. Now, we also need to recognize that our success will be even greater if there are others who are with us and are helping us. Verse 9 talks about this of chapter 4. And we need to learn to participate rather than compete with others. Now, the last question that needs to be answered with regards to fame and success is, what can we be successful at that will bring lasting fulfillment and happiness to my life? Well, first of all, we should try to be successful at having meaningful and close relationships with those around us. Verses 8 to 12 of chapter 4 talked about this. In these passages of Scripture, family relationships are mentioned, such as children, the spouse or marriage relationship and harmony in that relationship. As well, Solomon speaks of friendships in verse 10 with those around us that we have for different reasons. When we are successful at relationships with others, it is easy to find success in almost any venture that we undertake. But what we will discover is that the success that we find will not bring the fulfillment that we look for, but the friendships will. And secondly, but most importantly, a close relationship with our Creator. Chapter 4, verse 12 talks about this. This kind of relationship with God will bring great fulfillment to us. God is that third strand, the most important strand, in the cord of our life. When we learn to hear His voice and walk in obedience with Him, happiness and fulfillment are sure to come our way. Chapter 12, verses 1 and 13. If we can be successful at this, and the best at this, everything else in our life will fall into place, because God Himself will lead us into happiness and fulfillment in both this life and the life to come. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out the others in this series on fulfillment in life, and thank you for watching.